Rain lashed against the cracked sidewalk, each drop echoing like a ticking clock counting down to something terrible. The woman stood there, drenched, trembling, clutching her torn purse, her mascara running in dark rivers down her cheeks. Behind her, the street was empty except for the faint hum of a car engine that suddenly grew louder, closer, urgent. Then, from the darkness, a sleek black car stopped in front of her. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a man in his late 30s, sharp suit, calm eyes, and an expression carved from stone. "Get in the car," he said quietly, firmly, the kind of voice that left no room for hesitation. She froze, unsure if this stranger was danger or salvation. But something in his eyes, something deep, unreadable yet strangely protective, made her legs move before her mind could argue. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected miracles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories that touch the heart and inspire hope. Inside the car, silence ruled. The hum of the tires on wet asphalt was the only sound between them. She stared at the raindrops tracing the glass, trying to steady her breathing. Just 10 minutes earlier, she had been running from a man whose cruelty had turned her life into a nightmare. Her name was Maya Ellis, once a bright marketing executive, now a woman whose world had fallen apart after trusting the wrong person. Her ex-fiancé, a charming investor, had ruined her career, drained her savings, and left her reputation in ashes. Tonight, when she found out he was following her again, something inside her broke. She had fled into the storm, not knowing where to go. And now she was in the car of a stranger who seemed to know exactly what he was doing, and exactly who she was. The man didn't speak for miles. His name was Alexander Voss, the city's most elusive millionaire CEO. People called him the silent visionary because he rarely appeared in interviews, never attended social events, and kept his past locked away tighter than a vault. Yet his company had built half the city's skyline. Maya had once read about him in business magazines. A man rumored to have risen from the streets, carrying scars no one dared to ask about. But tonight, he wasn't a name or a title. He was simply a man who had stopped for a stranger in need. Maya glanced at him, trying to understand why. There was no flicker of curiosity, no hint of desire, only focus. His eyes were locked on the road as if every turn carried a secret he had to protect. When they finally stopped at a gated mansion overlooking the sea, her heart pounded. Why did you help me?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He simply opened the car door, gesturing for her to follow. Inside, warmth wrapped around her like a forgotten memory. The faint scent of cedar and old books filled the air. She noticed everything. The fireplace, the piano in the corner, the framed black and white photograph of a woman holding a little boy. It was the only picture in the vast room, and for a moment, Maya saw pain flicker in Alexander's usually unreadable face as his eyes brushed past it. He handed her a towel and in his quiet tone said, "You were being followed." She froze. He knew. He had seen. "I was nearby," he continued. "I recognized him. You're not safe at your apartment. You should stay here for a while." It wasn't a suggestion. It was protection. She wanted to refuse to question his intentions, but her exhaustion won. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to rest in a stranger's home, under the same roof as a man who seemed to hide his own war behind silence. Days passed. Rain turned to sunlight, but Alexander remained the same, distant, disciplined, and mysterious. Maya noticed he never smiled, never laughed, yet treated her with quiet respect. He arranged her meals, made sure she had clothes, and even called a lawyer to help her with her case. But what confused her most was how he seemed to understand her fear before she even spoke it. Once, when she woke up screaming from a nightmare, he was already there, standing in the doorway, calm and steady, just saying, "You're safe now." There was something about his voice that carried a weight, not coldness, but a history of promises kept under fire. She soon learned why. One evening, while exploring the study, she came across a stack of letters bound in ribbon. Curiosity won over hesitation. They were addressed to Captain Alexander Voss, from the U.S. Army. Each one was signed by a woman named Clara, his late wife. As she read, tears blurred her vision. Clara had written about waiting for him, praying for his safe return, believing in the future they'd build when the war ended. The last letter ended abruptly, dated 2 months before a fatal accident that claimed her life and their young son. That was the night Alexander Voss stopped speaking to the world. When he found Maya standing there, the letter trembling in her hands, he didn't get angry. He just stood silently, his eyes far away, as if reliving every heartbeat of pain. "I failed them," he said finally, his voice breaking the stillness. "And since then, I made it my mission to protect others, because I couldn't protect them." In that moment, the truth of his kindness hit her like a wave. He wasn't helping her out of pity or obligation. He was helping her because saving her made him feel like he could finally make peace with the ghosts of his past. As the days turned into weeks, something changed between them. Not romance, not yet, but a bond born of shared scars. Maya started rebuilding her life, applying for new jobs, finding courage to face the world again. And Alexander, the man who once hid from life, began to live again in small ways, listening to her laugh, walking with her by the cliffs, even smiling faintly when she teased him about his terrible coffee. But peace rarely lasts without one last test. One night, as they returned from the city, a black SUV blocked their driveway. The man Maya had feared, her ex-fiancé, drunk and furious, stepped out, shouting her name. Maya froze in terror, but before she could move, Alexander stepped forward. His voice was calm, but his presence radiated command. "Leave," he said. When the man lunged forward, Alexander moved with quiet precision, not in anger but in control. In seconds he had disarmed him, his military training surfacing like lightning through the rain. By the time police arrived, Maya was crying, not from fear, but from relief. After that night, the walls around both of them began to crumble. Sitting by the fire, Maya told him how she had lost faith in people, how betrayal had stolen her belief in kindness. Alexander listened, then said softly, "Sometimes people come into our lives not to stay forever, but to remind us that goodness still exists." His words stayed with her long after he left the room. Weeks later, when her case was resolved and her new life began, Maya stood by the gate of his mansion one last time. She turned to him and whispered, "You saved my life." He shook his head gently. "No," he said, "you saved mine." As she drove away, Alexander walked back inside, looking once more at the photograph of his wife and son. For the first time in years, he didn't feel haunted. He felt at peace, because helping Maya had given his pain a purpose, and purpose, he realized, was another name for healing. That night, Maya sent him a message. "Thank you, not just for protecting me, but for teaching me to believe again." He smiled faintly at the screen, replying with just 2 words, "Keep living." Outside, the storm had ended. The sea was calm, and somewhere between the echoes of loss and the whispers of hope, 2 broken souls had quietly saved each other.